Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto was betrayed by the council and built a deadly harem with Anko and a female Anbu, part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Frigid rain fell heavily as lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the form of a young 6-year-old blonde before thunder ripped through the skies above. Between the flashes of lightning, it could be seen that the young boy's shirt was full of holes of various sizes, exposing his malnourished body to the bitter elements. His pants in even worse condition as one of the pant legs was missing from the knee down, revealing his skinny leg. The boy continued to make his way down the empty street, as his bare feet splashed through the gathering puddles. A question any sensible person would have asked themselves upon seeing the boy would simply be, why was this child out in weather like this at this hour? The answer. Immediately at the stroke of midnight, the matron of the orphanage he resided in had kicked him out. Just as he turned 6 years old. With nowhere else to go, the child merely wandered the streets looking for some kind of shelter to get out of the cold. Stopping in front of a small alleyway, he peered down just as another flash of lightning lit up the village once more. Seeing a small pile of cardboard boxes and some plastic wrap used for shipments, he tentatively made his way towards them. It wasn't the most ideal of shelters, but it would do for the night until he could visit the old man and tell him what happened. Shuffling over to the pile of debris, the young child began to set to work on his home for the duration of the early morning hours. Just as he finished placing the plastic over the box to ward off the rain, he heard a group of footsteps behind him. Turning around, he saw a group of men and women gathering in the alley, blocking his only exit. Looks like the matron was right, the little demon brat is all alone with no one to watch over him. The man at the front stated with a sinister grin. My daughter would have been 10 years old this month if it wasn't for you. A woman shouted from the middle of the mob, prompting others to express their agreement. Be you, but I didn't do anything. Naruto could only stammer as he backed away from the crowd that slowly began to descend on him with malicious intent. Don't even try to lie, you demon brat. Another man replied as he raised his hand that held a lead pipe and brought it down harshly on the young boy's shoulder. A resounding crack could be heard and a cry of pain from the young child as his right arm hung limp from where his clavicle was broken. After the initial strike, everyone else joined in, throwing rocks, bottles and even some kunais at the poor child. Ignoring his cries of pain and pleas to stop. These only seemed to inspire the mob more. After a few minutes, Naruto collapsed to the ground, blood pooling around his body as darkness began to claim his vision. Bloodied, with kunai sticking out of his chest, belly and legs. As the mob stopped, the leader of the group came forward and took out another blade. This is for my family, you demon sack of filth, he stated as he brought the blade down on the child's arm and slashing it down, opening the flesh up to expose muscle and tendons. The man repeated the process with Naruto's left leg and started to move towards the stomach when a kunai struck him in the forehead. Alarmed, the mob looked up to the roof to see a squad of Anbu. The leader of the group with a weasel mask, his Sharingan spinning furiously at the sight before him. Hawk, boar, take these people to Ibiki for his special treatment. Weasel smiled under his mask as he saw the mob's color drain from their collective faces. A few even tried to run before being struck down by the other surrounding Anbu that quickly incapacitated the rest. Having issued his orders, he jumped down to the alleyway as the sun began to rise over the horizon, giving light to the grisly scene before him. Kneeling next to the boy is another Anbu member, doing a medical scan to account for the damages done to the poor child. Report. Weasel stated. It's not good. I am detecting a broken clavicle, 3 broke ribs, a punctured lung, part of his heart is collapsed on itself, and that's not counting the lacerations on his arm and leg. The female Anbu reported, holding back her sickness and anger at the sight before her. I'll take him to the hospital. Weasel stated as he carefully picked up the boy's prone body. Go and report to the Hokage immediately. Yes, sir. The medic Anbu replied and shunshined off in a swirl of leaves. Weasel immediately did the same, hoping to get him to the hospital in time. For if he didn't, Kami have mercy on those involved. Naruto's mindscape. Hang in there, Kit, yelled the giant fox frantically as it smashed its body into the giant cage. Desperately trying to pump more of its chakra into the child, only for it to be strangled through the seal, allowing only a trickle of it to reach the dying boy. Damn seal. The boy in question slowly began to stir from his position in the water-filled room. Taking in the room around him, he began to question where he was. Did they dump my body in a sewer? He asked out loud, not expecting an answer. The next thing he noticed is that his body no longer hurt. Looking down, he couldn't find any traces of the attack he had just endured. Thank Yami, you're awake. A voice behind Naruto boomed, causing the boy to spin around and come face to face with a giant fox head behind a gate, with a tag across the center that read, Seal, in kanji. Who are you? Naruto stammered, taking a cautious step back. It seems this form frightens you. The fox answered with a large smile before its body was surrounded with a red smoke, obscuring the massive body from view. A few seconds later the smoke clears, revealing a young-looking woman dressed in a red battle kimono with black hair, red eyes and 9 white tails flowing behind her. 3 red whisker marks adorn her cheeks, similar to his only more pronounced. To answer your question, I am the reason you were attacked. The newly formed girl stated, remorse evident in her voice. How are you the cause of it? Naruto asked, clearly confused. Because I am the Kyuubi no Kitsune. She clarified, waiting for the boy to lash out at her. However, nothing came, he only stared at her in bewilderment. 6 years ago, I was manipulated into attacking this village. She continued. I am not sure who it was. The only thing I remember is being ripped out of my former host and tossed out into the world before a man in an orange mask put me under his control and had me attack the village. Then I was sealed into you. Wait, if I am talking to you now, does that mean we are inside me? The young blonde tried to wrap his brain around this bit of information. Yes, we are inside you. More precisely, you mindscape. The Kyuubi answered, before turning serious. But we are low on time. Right now, your body is dying and I can't give you enough of my chakra to heal your wounds. What? You're saying I am dying? Naruto exclaimed in a voice of panic. Yes, I can only delay it. The girl behind the cage explained, hanging her head in sorrow. I'm sorry. That damn seal is preventing me from giving you more of my chakra. Is there anything I can do? Naruto asked as he gazed up at the gate with a frown. He may hate how the villagers treated him, but he wasn't ready to die just yet. If you could weaken the seal, more of my chakra would be open to you. She explained. What if I just take the seal off? No, the girl exclaimed. That would only kill you. Just tear a piece of the corner off, no bigger than your thumb. Nodding, Naruto moved towards the seal. As he reached up to tear off a piece, a flash of light appeared before a sharp kick threw the boy to the other end of the room, causing him to spit up some blood, slipping into unconsciousness. In front of the cage stood a man that looked like an older version of Naruto. I didn't sacrifice myself so you can ruin it, brat. The man sneered. You bastard. The girl screamed at the man. Your son is about to die. He will survive this. Minato grinned as he turned his attention to the girl. This experience will only harden him further to make him a powerful weapon for the village. And you're going to help him. You're a heartless bastard. She snarled, if Kushina knew what kind of asshole you were, she never would have fallen for you. And that is a ninja's greatest weapon. The blonde man grinned. Deception. I deceived her into falling for me to secure Uzushiyogakure's secrets for Konohagakure and secure its place as the most powerful hidden village. Positioning it to conquer the elemental nations with my son leading the conquest, the power of the Kyuubi at his disposal to level all opposition. You truly are a vile and corrupt man. A distorted voice echoed through the chambers, causing both Minata and the Kyuubi girl to look around for its source. A crimson orb descended into the center of the room before bursting, raining what appeared to be blood all over the middle of the room. Where the center of the orb once was, stood a tall, slender woman with silver hair tied back into a high ponytail. Resting along her shoulder is a large triple-bladed scythe, made of a black material of some kind, giving it a wispy-like appearance. Her blood-red crimson eyes focused on the former Hokage, causing the man to shudder under her gaze. Who the hell are you? Minato asked, regaining his composure. Who I am is of no concern of yours, mortal. The woman replied coldly as she gripped her weapon and pointed it at Minato. Just know that I have come for your soul. Then it's a shame my soul already belongs to the Shinigami. He smirked. I am aware of this. The woman gave a sinister grin, causing a cold shiver to travel down Minato's spine. Unfortunately for you, Shinigami Ni-san is my brother and has given me your soul for punishment of your vile actions. Not giving the blonde man any chance to retort, the silver-haired woman drove her scythe forward, impaling the chest of Minato, causing him to elicit an earth-shattering scream of pain as his soul was absorbed into the woman's scythe. I shall enjoy feasting on your corrupt soul, Minato Namikaze. She grinned as the last traces of the fourth Hokage dissipated. With the task done, the silver-haired woman turned her crimson eyes towards the Kyuubi girl, causing the young girl to shrink back in fear. Unsure of what this woman could do to her. Now that that bastard is taken care of, let us see about saving young Naruto-kun. The woman replied as she walked over towards the seal and examined it. I can't remove the seal, but I can alter it so that you can aid him more efficiently. Do you intend on making him a weapon with my power as well? The girl asked cautiously. A weapon? No, I intend to make him my champion. The woman smiled as she began to move various symbols around the seal. Almost immediately, the Kyuubi girl could feel her chakra pouring into the young boy. Real world. The Anbu known as Weasel stood over young Naruto's hospital bed as the heart monitor steadily beeped. He was still infuriated as to what had just happened. He literally had to threaten one of the doctors to get the boy taken care of, and because he didn't trust the hospital staff to do their jobs without bias, he stood over them as they worked to stabilize the boy. Soon, he was joined by the Hokage himself. Weasel quickly gave him a full report of what he encountered. The elder man was even more upset that the Anbu was and had ordered the rest to investigate the matron at the orphanage, insisting that they bring her to Ibiki for questioning of her negligence, as Naruto was to be under her care until he was at least old enough to attend to academy. In silence, they stood by the boy's side when they noticed Naruto's body being surrounded by red chakra, causing some fear from the village leader that the Kyuubi may be attempting to escape. However, his fears were quickly dispelled when he saw the grievous wounds healing themselves. Hokage-sama, what just happened? Weasel inquired as the red chakra began to seep back into the boy, having healed all of his wounds and mended all of Naruto's broken bones. It was almost as if the attack never happened. I am unsure, but I can only surmise that young Naruto's tenant doesn't want to die and is healing Naruto to keep itself from dying. The elder man explained as best it could. Naruto's mindscape. Naruto groaned as he slowly came to, half expecting to find himself in a completely new area. Looking around, he was somewhat relieved that he was still within his mindscape. Although, instead of the blonde man that had attacked him, there was a silver-haired woman conversing with the girl behind the cage. Ah, you're awake, the silver-haired woman stated, making her way over to the young blonde. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? Kyuubi asked in concern. I'm okay, he grunted as he stood up, looking at the newly arrived woman. Who are you? I am Jashin, the goddess of blood and carnage. The woman replied with a smile that, strangely enough, was kind and gentle considering her title. Now, first things first. How about we do something about this sewer? What do you mean? Naruto asked, a bit confused. This is your mind, Naruto-kun. Jashin explained. You can change it to how you see fit. It is only like this because all you have known is loneliness and pain. Instead, imagine being in an open meadow, surrounded by a lush forest. Imagine a peaceful stream flowing through the meadow. Naruto closed his eyes, and began to imagine what the goddess described. Slowly the sewer-like setting began to dissolve as birds could be heard chirping. A cool breeze blowing against his skin as the sound of honey bees going from flower to flower. Opening his eyes, he could only marvel at the sight before him. An open lush meadow, with a stream flowing through the center surrounded by the lush forest Jashin had described. Sitting in the center of the meadow was the kitsune girl, her tail stretched out, enjoying the cool breeze. No longer confined behind the cage-like prison. Instead, a silver necklace was around her neck with the kanji for seal dangling from the silver chain. Jumping up, she quickly ran towards the blonde boy and tackled him in a hug, giving him kisses along his cheeks. Thank you, thank you, thank you, she repeated, tears of joy streaming down her face. You're welcome, Kyuubi, Naruto said, hugging the kitsune back. Ari, she replied. My name is Ari, Kyuubi is only a title. You're welcome, Ari-chan. The blonde smiled. Ari blushed at the suffix, but smiled nonetheless. Well done, this is a massive improvement over that sewer. Jashin commented as she scanned her surroundings, bringing the attention back to her. Thank you for your help, Jashin-sama. Naruto expressed, turning towards the woman. Please, call me Jashin-chan, or just Ya-chan for short. She smiled, causing the poor boy to blush. Now that you are out of danger, let us get to the real reason for my visit to you, Naruto-kun. Naruto nodded, curious as to what the goddess would want with him. He didn't think himself anything special when compared to other kids his age. The real reason I am here is to offer you a deal. Jashin began. I have watched you for some time now, from the day of your birth up until now, and you have interested me greatly. Despite your constant mistreatment and neglect, you persevere through it all and push forward. That is why I want to make you my champion. Your champion? Asked Naruto, a bit uncertain what was being asked of him. Yes. Should you accept, I will grant you a gift of power to help you through your conflicts. However, while I will grant you this gift, it will be up to you to learn how to use it to its fullest extent, the goddess answered. What power would you give him? Ari asked, a little curious. The power over shadow and darkness. The goddess grinned. Normally I would grant my champion immortality, but Naruto-kun is special and deserves something more unique. What would be required of me in being your champion? Naruto asked. Simple. Jashin started. You would be tasked with 2 missions. 1. Restoring my name in the elemental nations that has been desecrated by the cults that have sprung forth, claiming to do vile things in my name. 2nd, you will be asked to reap corrupt souls for me. However, you will not be tasked with these in the near future. Before I accept, I have one question. The blonde stated. Power doesn't come without cost. What would be the price of accepting this gift? Despite his young age, Naruto had been forced to grow mentally early on to avoid traps and other things during his young age. This question earned him a smile from the goddess before him. Very wise, and you are correct, this power will come at a cost. Jashin stated. In order for your body to accept this power, I will have to change you to a Hanyu. A half-demon. So I would become what the villagers accuse me of? Naruto asked, a little frightened at the idea. He was already hated as is. If he were to become a demon, it would only increase their hatred of him, and no doubt more mobs would chase after him. Honestly, I doubt it would make any difference to the villagers, if that is your concern, Naruto-kun. The goddess answered truthfully. They already see you as a demon through their ignorance. The only difference would be that you would have the power to protect yourself from the angry mobs or even avoid such conflicts altogether. And what would be the benefits of becoming a half-demon? The boy asked, trying to cover all of his bases before making such a big decision. Aside from the powers I am granting you. She quirked an eyebrow, earning a nod from the young boy. Your body will be more durable and mature slightly faster than those of your age. Aside from that, your strength, speed, senses and stamina will be inhuman, allowing you to accomplish feats others would deem impossible for your age. Your eyes will also gain the ability of what I call shadow sight, though the name doesn't do it justice. Lastly, you will heal even faster if you attain any injury. Added that Ari-chan can make it almost instant. And how will I change physically? Naruto inquired. While so far this offer sounded good, it wouldn't do him much good if he had to stay hidden because he sprouted horns and a tail. And how does this shadow sight work? You are worried how others will see you. Jashin smirked. Fear not, your physical changes will be minor. Apart from more defined muscles, your hair may take some dark highlights. Though if you are enraged, other features will become more prominent, such as elongated canines, sharp claw-like fingernails, and your cute little whisker marks becoming more defined. As for your shadow sight, as I said, the name doesn't do it justice. She continued, her voice glowing with a sense of pride as she began to describe the ability. When activated, you will be able to see perfectly in the darkness. Furthermore, instead of looking for chakra-like other sight-based abilities, this eyesight will pick up life energy. Meaning if it is alive, you will be able to see who, where, and what it is. I pride this at being my ultimate creation. It really doesn't sound like that or any drawbacks, Jashin-sama. Ari commented as she watched her vessel mull over the possibilities. However, one question did rise in the kitsune's mind. Anyo, if he accepts, what will happen to me? Nothing, came Jashin's reply. The seal will still be in place, so you would continue to exist, albeit in a naturally stronger vessel. After a few minutes, Naruto sighed and looked to the goddess in front of him before smiling. Very well, Ya-chan, I accept your gift, he replied, earning a gentle smile from the silver-haired goddess. I am glad, Naruto-kun. She smiled as she slowly walked towards him, kneeling down so she was face to face with him, causing the poor boy to blush at the close proximity between the two of them. I will not lie to you, you will feel some pain when you wake up. Naruto merely nodded in acceptance. After this attack, he doubted he could feel a worse kind of pain. Gently, the goddess cupped both of his cheeks and brought him closer to her. Before he could react, she kissed him on the lips, once again causing the poor boy to blush deeply, having never done anything like this before. As she did so, dark energies began to flow from her body into his. This process lasted only a few minutes, before the young began faded from his mindscape, leaving behind a smiling goddess and a blushing kitsune. Was that really necessary? Ari asked, slightly pouting that the goddess had just stolen the boy's first kiss. No, but it was entertaining. And he is cute. Jashin smiled, turning to the fox girl, reaching into her kimono and withdrawing a black-looking scroll, handing it to Ari. I must leave now. I trust you to help teach young Naruto-kun his abilities and general training to prepare him for the world. This scroll contains information on some of the shadow abilities. Once he has mastered these, I will give him another scroll. It will be done, Jashin-sama. Ari bowed in respect, only to blush as the goddess came in close, her lips just an inch away from the kitsune's ear. And do not fret, after all, Naruto-kun will need to take multiple mates. Jashin smiled before disappearing into a blood-red orb and vanishing, leaving a furiously blushing kitsune at the implications the goddess left. Real world. The first thing Naruto was made aware of as he regained consciousness was that his body felt like it was on fire. It was as if someone had tossed him into an oven and left him there to bake. Granted, he wouldn't put it past the villagers to attempt something like that. Gritting his teeth, he forced his body to move, despite his muscles' protest to do even the most basic of movements. Well, Jashin-chan did warn me that I would be sore. He thought to himself. I wonder if the physical changes already happened. Naruto-kun, you're awake. The old man beside his bed exclaimed, catching the attention of the boy in the Anbu in the weasel mask. Hey Gigi. Naruto replied in a weak, almost silent voice, shocking himself. Try not to talk too much, Naruto-kun. Weasel stated as he approached the bedside. The doctors said your vocal cords were severely damaged during last night's attack. Naruto frowned, but nodded as he remembered what happened. If he focused on the memories, he could still feel each hit that fell on him. However, his frown was replaced with a small smile as he remembered what happened afterwards. Unconsciously bringing his fingers to his lips as the realization just hit him. He had kissed an actual goddess. Are you okay, Naruto-kun? The Hokage asked in concern. I'm fine, Gigi. The boy replied, his voice sounding a bit stronger now, earning a quirked eyebrow from the Anbu, unaware of how the boy was healing so fast. Though he assumed it was due to his tenant. As I understand it, the matron of the orphanage kicked you out this morning before the attack. Currently she is being detained and a replacement for her is being reviewed so that we can get you situated back with the other kids. At this Naruto only shook his head. Is there any way I can get my own place? Naruto asked. You know the villagers hate me, so no matter who is in charge, it will just happen all over again later. Hiruzen could only sadly nod. He knew the boy had a valid point. The old man swore to Kami, if he ever discovered who let it slip of the boy's Jinchuriki status to the common public, he would rake that poor soul over hell fire and then some. I will see what I can do. Rest up, Naruto-kun. The old man smiled sadly. Weasel, watch over him. Lethal force is authorized to any threats. The Anbu gave a short nod and followed the village leader out of the room to stand guard by the door to allow the boy to peacefully rest. Despite how this day started, I would have to say this has been the best birthday I have had so far. He smiled to himself. Happy birthday, Naruto-kun. Eri's voice echoed in his mind, causing the boy to smile even more. Jashin-sama left you a scroll for your new abilities. Thank you, Ari-chan. He replied back to her with their mental link before he leaned back into his pillow and fell asleep once more. Slipping back into his mindscape once more. The young blonde sighed heavily as he made his way through the village. Once again, his teacher decided that he was responsible for the mess that happened in this classroom that afternoon, despite the mess in question was all the way on the other side of the room from him. Either way, it didn't matter to him. If anything, it allowed him to avoid the group of kids that had planned to jump him as soon as he left school. Unfortunately for the group of bullies, Naruto was no longer an easy target. With his heightened senses thanks to being a Hanyu, he could easily hear the whispers shared between the group that conspired to bring him more physical pain. Thus, he was able to plan around it and avoid them altogether. The wrongfully delivered detention just made it easier for him. He did find it amusing that the group of kids actually waited outside for him for the full 2 hours he served his detention, only to discover that Naruto never walked out the doors. In fact, the moment he left the classroom, he ducked into a corner full of shadows and disappeared. Reappearing a few blocks down the street in an alleyway. Using one of his favorite new abilities from the black scroll he had gotten on his 6th birthday, the Shidusutepu, Shadow Step. A handy ability that allowed him to literally walk into shadows and travel elsewhere in a split second. In theory, he surmised he could use this ability to travel anywhere, whether he had visited that place before or not. However, in practice he only traveled to places he had already been. No need to take unnecessary chances and get lost in the darkness. Seriously, with how strong you are with your Hanyu body, you could have easily floored those twerps. Ari commented in anger in Naruto's mind. She had become even more fiercely protective over her blonde container over the past 2 years since they officially met. Maybe, but you have to remember half the kids in the class have parents or family members on the civilian council. Naruto replied mentally. All the perks I have for being a half-demon would be moot if I am locked away in a prison cell. And the old man can only do so much until I become a genin at least. I understand where you are coming from. Ari frowned. Not that the blonde could see it. I just hate that you have all this power and have to hide it. Speaking of which, why didn't you just use your Shidosutepu to just return to your apartment? Why come out in the alley? I know Ari-chan, I know. But my bastard of a father was right about one thing. Deception is a very powerful tool to employ. Naruto stated, a scowl on his face at the mention of his father. As for not returning directly home, mostly the same reason. If I am never seen wandering around the village, people will begin to get suspicious and that would put more scrutiny on us. Also, I want some ramen. Ari could only chuckle in response. Casually, the blonde Jinchuriki made his way towards his favorite ramen stand, ignoring the various glares and sneers that were cast his way. As long as they didn't try anything, he didn't care, and so he continued on his way. As he continued on, his pace slowed as he walked past the now mostly empty Uchiha compound as a frown formed on his face, though he didn't linger long. Only a few months after the attack on his 6th birthday, Uchiha Itachi had killed his entire clan save for his younger brother and left the village. The official story was that Itachi had betrayed the village and slaughtered his clan in the quest for more power. Though that didn't sit right with the young blonde. He knew there was more to it than that. There just had to be, but he knew the old man wouldn't tell him anything, even if his theory was correct. Passing the Uchiha compound, Naruto turned right down a small side street that led to the village's main road, where Ichiraku's was located. The young boy could already smell the tantalizing scent from where he was. With renewed urgency, Naruto quickly made his way to the stand. Hey old man. Naruto greeted the man behind the counter as he entered the stand, taking a seat near the far side of the counter. How was school, Naruto? Tsuki asked before shouting in the back of the shop for his daughter. The usual, get in trouble for stuff I had nothing to do with. The blonde shrugged as a young girl around the age of 10 skipped out from the back of the shop. Flour on her face, as well as some in her brown hair. You need something, Pop? The girl asked before noticing her favorite customer was here. Oh, hi Naruto-kun. Good afternoon Ayame-chan, working hard. Naruto smiled as the girl embraced him in a friend hug, rubbing some of the flour on him as well. Yup. The girl exclaimed. Someone has to keep this place running. Naruto chuckled at the girl's response and the girl's father could only snicker at her antics. So what I can get ya Naruto? Tsuki asked. The usual. Actually, I was told to request something a little different. The blonde smiled. The Kushina special. At hearing the dish's name, the elder man froze in shock, nearly dropping the bowl he was drying off. Naruto, who told you to ask for this dish? The ramen chef inquired, clearly thinking someone was playing a cruel prank on the boy. This was a dish only one person. One woman in all of the elemental nations could handle and no one has had the courage to order it in 8 years. I overheard 2 shinobis making a bet with each other. Loser had to order a large bowl of that particular dish. Naruto began to explain. When I heard that your shop made it, I asked them about it. I suppose they didn't warn you about why no one orders this dish. The elder man frowned. Actually, they did. I know what to expect and I still want to try it. The blonde smiled. You can still make it, right Tsuki Oji-san? Of course. Tsuki exclaimed, feeling his pride as a chef was questioned. Ayame, let's get to work. It's time you learned how to make this dish. Okay Pops. Ayame enthusiastically replied, still unsure as to why this dish was so special to her father. As the father and daughter duo disappeared into the back of the shop, Naruto felt a little guilty about lying to them. Of course, how was he going to tell them that his very own mother was the one that suggested he try it out? Flashback no jutsu. As soon as Naruto's head hit the hospital pillow, the young boy had passed out. Immediately returning to his own, now more lush mindscape to spend some more time with his newfound friend and partner, and to also look over the scroll that Jashin had left behind for him. Welcome back, Naruto-kun. Ari greeted happily as she bounded over to where the young blonde and materialized. Thanks Ari-chan. Naruto smiled as he was engulfed in a hug from the vixen girl. Here is the scroll that Jashin-sama left. The Kyuubi girl stated as she handed her container the black scroll the goddess had left for her new champion. She said that this will give you an introduction to some of your new powers. Awesome, the young blonde stated, clearly excited in the concept of learning not only something new, but something only he would be able to do. Eagerly, he unrolled the scroll and gazed upon the blood-red letters that emitted an odd shine to them, making them really stand out against the black background of the scroll. The young boy had to admit that there was something entrancing about the way the letters glowed. Just as the two were about to delve into the knowledge the scroll held, a sudden bright flash of white light caught their attention. Alarmed, they stood up with Ari standing in front of Naruto in a defensive stance, determined to protect the young boy. As the light died down, a lone feminine figure stood in the center of the field, clearly upset about something. Minato, where the hell are you? The woman shouted. I swear to Kami that I will rip your spine out and beat you to death with it. Maybe upset wasn't the exact word to describe the strange woman's current mood. The two remained quiet as the woman continued to rant and yell of the graphic things she was going to do to Naruto's father. As the two silently observed the woman, Eri's eyes widened in realization. Kushina-chan, the Kyuubi girl asked, a little unsure. Hearing her name, the woman suddenly turned her attention to the other two in the area. Immediately, her eyes began to soften. Ari-chan, is that you? The red-haired woman asked as she slowly approached the two. Earning a nod from the fox girl, she then turned her attention to the blonde-haired boy next to the Kyuubi. Then that must mean. Without hesitation she immediately burst forward and engulfed Naruto into a firm, but loving hug. Afraid to let this moment go as tears streamed down her cheeks. I'm so sorry Sochi, she whispered as she kissed his cheek. Naruto for his part didn't know what to say or do as the woman continued to say she was sorry over and over again and begged for his forgiveness that he had to shoulder such a burden. A few seconds ticked by before it all clicked into place. Gently, he embraced the woman back, giving his mother a firm hug. It's okay Ka-san, I don't blame you. He whispered, tears now starting to form in his eyes. I swear to Kami, if I ever get my hands on that bastard of a husband of mine. We know, you were very vocal and descriptive of what you were going to do Ka-chan. Kushina blushed at the comment. Also, you don't have to worry about him anymore. Naruto continued, earning a confused look from his mother. Jashin-chan took his soul earlier today. The blonde boy explained. Upon hearing the name Jashin, Kushina's eyes widened in fear. Also the fact that her son had added the chan suffix at the end of the brutal goddess's name only elevated her worries. She knew that the life of a Jinchuriki was hard and full of suffering, but did her child really suffer so much as to become a Jashinist? So Sochi, are you a? She couldn't finish her question, but Naruto understood what she wanted to ask. Taking a step back away from his mother, the young blonde let out a sigh before he turned his attention back to his mother. He could see the fear in her eyes about what his answer was going to be. Am I a Jashinist? He asked for her, before shaking his head. I am not sure if a simple name like that would apply to me really. I suppose I should begin with how my birthday started. With a frown, Ari sat down next to her container, not really excited to relive the morning's events again. But, the boy's mother needed to know about the life her son has led so far. Today was my birthday, Naruto began. You would think a kid my age would be excited for it. But for me, this day always brought pain as it's also the day my bastard of a father defeated the Kyuubi. Every year on my birthday, The matron of the orphanage would ensure I was locked or kicked out for some reason or another just so the mobs can organize their so-called fox hunts. It usually ends about how you're imagining it. For her part, Kushina was becoming more and more livid at the actions of the villagers. The same villagers that her ever so loving dear of a husband had promised would take care of their son in their absence should the worst come to happen. Her eyes suddenly widened. This is what that bastard meant by taking care of their son. This year was the worst, and the best at the same time, ironically. Naruto smiled, breaking his mother out of her chain of thoughts. This time, they actually almost succeeded in killing me. Ari-chan did her best to try and heal me. But the damage I had taken was too much, especially with the way that bastard had to seal done. It also didn't help that the bastard made his appearance to make sure I didn't tamper with the seal. Bastard even attacked me, to ensure I couldn't get to the seal, saying he wasn't about to let me undo his sacrifice. Naruto-kun fell unconscious again after being struck. Ari started, filling in for when Naruto was knocked out. Though, in theory he could have remembered it either way since they were within his mind when it happened. I argued with the bastard as he gloated about deceiving you with his lies. Acting all proud and how Naruto-kun would become colder after he survived his experience and become the village's weapon to bring the other nations under Konohagakure's rule. And then, Jashin-sama came. Ari continued with a smile. She took Minato Tem's soul to torture for eternity. But, his soul was given to the Shinigami. Kushina stated, confused at the events as well as worried that even the Kyuubi spoke about Jashin with respect. Shinigami-sama is her brother, and he gifted her his soul. Ari smiled again. After she took the Tem's soul, she altered my seal to allow me to feed Naruto-kun more of my chakra to ensure he would live. It was shortly after that I awoke to find both Ari-chan and Jashin-chan talking. Naruto spoke again, bringing the attention back to him. Sochi, why do you keep using Chan when talking about Jashin? Kushina asked. Well, she kind of asked me to. The blonde chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. Anyways, we talked a great deal and she offered to give me power, but at a cost. Cautiously, he looked at his mother and could see that she was afraid of what he was going to say. However, he was also concerned with how she would react when he tells her that he is now a half-demon and Jashin-chan's champion. To help me avoid future fox hunts, and the hatred from the villagers, she gave me a special power. A bloodline if you will. However, the price is I am now a half-demon. A Hanyu. Why? Kushina exclaimed. Why would you agree to such a thing? Because I was tired of fearing for my life. Naruto bluntly stated, snapping his mother out of her hysteria. And I know what you're thinking, and no. Jashin-chan didn't manipulate me into agreeing to accept her gift. We talked in detail about the pros and cons of it. In the end, I saw that the pros greatly outweighed the negatives. It's true, Kushina-chan. The Kyuubi girl spoke up again. Jashin-sama spoke the truth about what changes would happen and Naruto-kun desperately needed a way to escape the hunts. Besides, I think he looks cuter now. Ari-chan, are you flirting with your godson? The red-headed woman asked in a teasing tone. Godson? Naruto inquired, confused by this new development. Yeah, Kushina-chan kind of made me one of your godmothers before you were born. Ari rubbed her left arm in embarrassment. Anyways, the blonde Hanyu began. After giving me her gift of power, she made me her champion. When I am ready in terms of skill and strength, I am tasked with restoring Jashin-chan's name to the world and wiping out the cults that have defiled her name. Cults? Kushina asked. I was under the impression that these cults did as Jashin commanded. And therein lies the problem. Naruto sighed. You see, these cults work in their own self-interest and will sacrifice anyone, regardless. Does Jashin-chan want souls? Yes, but only corrupt souls. These cults defile her name. So you see, Ka-chan, you don't have to be afraid of Jashin-chan. Okay. I see, was all the elder Uzumaki said. wrapping her mind around the information she had just been given. But I do have a question. Ari-chan said she was one of my godmothers, who are the others? Tsunade Senju, one of the three legendary Sannin. His mother replied with a smile. Your father though, named Jiraiya your godfather though. Then I know who not to trust. Naruto frowned. After his first impression of his father, he didn't trust anyone associated with the man, and with what he learned from Ari-chan, he would wager that his godfather would also seek to manipulate him to further his father's plan. Too bad Jashin-chan put a wrench in their plans. Kushina for her part could only nod in agreement. She never liked the perverted old man to begin with, and after her son's experience with his father, she couldn't blame him for not trusting anyone connected to the bastard. Finding who to trust is always a gamble, his mother remarked. However, the seriousness of the moment was disrupted at the sound of the young blonde's stomach rumbling in hunger, causing the two women to chuckle a little and the poor blonde boy to rub the back of his head in embarrassment. Soon as I get out of this hospital, I am getting me some ramen. Datbeo. The blonde proudly exclaimed, not noticing the verbal tick he had. No better ramen than Ichiraku's. Kushina smirked. Tsuki is the chef of Kami himself. I know. Where do you think I get my ramen? The blonde replied. Sure, those instant ones are good to hold you over, but they taste bland. Though, Jashin-chan says I need to eat more than just ramen to get stronger. She's right, Databane. The redhead stated, for once agreeing with the goddess of blood and carnage. You need to eat balanced so you can grow faster and become stronger. Girls aren't going to want a skinny Hanyu. Naruto could only smile at his mother's words. Especially the last part, since to him it symbolized that she had accepted his choice and had trust in him. However, the feeling of joy soon began to disappear as his mother's body began to fade. Looks like my time is up, Sochi. She smiled as she knelt down, bringing her son into one last hug. Also dragging Ari into it as well, knowing full well this would be the last time she would see them. I love you, Ka-chan, and I am going to miss you. Naruto wept, fully letting his tears fall. Tell you what, Sochi, the next time you go to Ichiraku's, ask the old man about the Kushina special. Kushina commented with a warm smile. I warn you, it is hot. It has to be to live up to my nickname, the red hot-blooded habanero. I will, Ka-chan, I will. He smiled. Slowly, while still embracing the two. Kushina faded away one final time, leaving two grieving individuals. Flashback no jutsu dispelled. Naruto couldn't prevent a few tears from falling at the memory of his late mother. It was a bittersweet moment for him. To finally be able to connect with her, only for it to be so short. Either way, he treasured it. Every second with her was priceless and he would cherish it. His train of thought was soon interrupted as the father and daughter duo returned, carefully holding a large bowl of ramen. Tsuki's face looked like if any drop of it spilled, that it would set fire to anything it touched. Gently, the old man set the bowl down in front of Naruto with a concerned look. Almost as if silently praying that the young boy would survive this experience. For Naruto's part, he could smell the amount of spices and chilies wafting up into his nostrils, causing the boy's mouth to water in anticipation. Grabbing his chopsticks, took a cautious bite of the noodles. Almost immediately his eyes widened and began to water before he began to attack the bowl with gusto, much to the shock of the ramen chef. He had only ever seen one person in his life eat this particular dish in such a way. That was great, Tsuki Oji-san. Naruto exclaimed once he finished the bowl. I think I found my new favorite dish. Tsuki could only look on, completely gobsmacked. He was half expecting the boy to start breathing fire with the amount of heat that was in that bowl. However, the boy's reaction clearly told him that he was going to have to restock all of his chilies and spices in the very near future. Speaking of which, the elder man was surprised that the young boy had only ordered one bowl so far. Usually the young blonde would be on his 10th bowl by now. I'll be sure to keep the ingredients stocked then. Tuki smiled. Thanks, old man. The blonde beamed as he pulled out his wallet to pay for the meal, only to be stopped by the ramen chef. Tonight is on the house, my boy. For being the first person in 8 years to order and finish such a dish. The old man stated, earning an agreeing nod from his daughter. Thanks again, old man, Naruto said as he looked up at the darkening sky with a slight frown. It's starting to get dark, so I am going to head home. Ayame, be a dear and walk Naruto home, Tuki said, knowing full well his daughter had a crush on the boy. Of course, Pops. She smiled as she made her move to join the young boy, only to be stopped. Ayame-chan, I can't allow you to do that. He smiled sadly. You know how the villagers feel about me, and I cannot allow you to put yourself in harm's way for me. I just don't want you to get hurt either. Ayame frowned, not knowing of all the times Naruto had been hospitalized from previous attacks before his 6th birthday. I'll be fine, he reassured her with a gentle hug. Besides, the darkness is the ally to a shinobi. And I am going to be the best shinobi the world has ever seen. Datbeo. Ayame and Tuki could only chuckle in response at the confidence the boy exuded. They believed that he would make a fine shinobi. Especially with his selfless attitude. The fact that he didn't want to put Ayame in any sort of danger only increased the mon's respect for the boy, and fed the crush the young girl had on him. Without saying anything else, Naruto had left the ramen stand and made his way towards the apartment that the Hokage had managed to secure for him. Of course, like everything else when it pertained to the boy, the village leader was met with some resistance about the course of action. In the end, a compromise had to be made, so instead of the nice apartment that Hiruzen had intended for the boy, Naruto was given a run-down apartment in the red light district of the village. To be honest, Naruto didn't mind in the slightest. A more run-down place was perfect in his eyes as it attracted less attention. Not to mention, he really didn't want to have a nice apartment ruined for the inevitable graffiti and such that were bound to happen. And it did. No sooner had the blonde moved into the apartment, did the walls begin to get covered in various forms of graffiti. While the vandalism riled up the Kyuubi girl to no end, Naruto merely ignored it. Knowing full well that until he became a shinobi, there was little he could do to retaliate in any form. Thurr he-ish, slurred a drunken man, as he stumbled out of Shushuya, one of the village's more popular pubs. Due to its close proximity of the village's more perverted and carnal secrets. Lests got him. Despite the incoherence of the man, other patrons who were less intoxicated were quick to jump to the mon's call. Grabbing bottles and other items that could be used as weapons to attack the 8-year-old, the group of a dozen or so began to chase after the boy. Paying no mind to the young girl crouched on the roof overlooking the street. A scowl dug in deeply on her face. Here we go again. Naruto sighed mentally as he took off down the street at speeds faster than a normal 8-year-old. Much to the anger of the mob behind him. Get enough distance between me and them, duck into the alley and disappear into the shadows and watch as they rage yet another failure to corner me. Ari could only giggle in response. While she wasn't too fond of running, she couldn't help but admit how hilarious the end result would be. Even she learned a few new profane words from the mobs that failed in their assignment. As planned, Naruto quickly ducked into the alleyway and was running to the end where the darkest shadows were. However, he didn't expect some shinobi to be in the mob as a kunai whizzed by his cheek, catching the blonde's attention. You're pretty fast for a demon brat, the nameless shinobi stated with a grin as he pulled out another kunai. Yeah, well, when you have morons constantly trying to kill you, you learn to move fast. Naruto shrugged, not showing any signs of worry. Though he was a bit disappointed that his initial plan had fallen through, leaving him no choice but to show off some of his powers in front of witnesses. By now the rest of the mob had caught up, some of them winded from the distance they had to run to catch up to the demon brat. Clearly not happy about having to run just to catch up with the brat. Well, you won't have to worry about that anymore. The shinobi grinned maliciously. Because you won't survive after tonight. Without waiting for a reply, the shinobi of the group quickly threw the kunai he had in his hand at the blonde boy. However, to both parties' surprise, it never made it as a second kunai came from above and knocked the first out of the air. A few seconds later, a lone feminine figure jumped down from the roof. Naruto noted that she had purplish hair, tied up into a pineapple-like fashion. Her burgundy t-shirt hiding her figure as a pair of khaki shorts rounded out her outfit. You lot are pretty brave when teaming up against a kid, she replied as she twirled a kunai in her fingers as she stared down the mob. Figures, now that I can look out for myself, someone decides to interfere. Naruto frowned to himself. Not that he didn't appreciate the help, but with the girl now defending him, he couldn't in good conscience abandon her here. No surprise the snake whore would defend the demon brat. The male shinobi taunted, earning a glare from the girl in question. However, her glare turned into a sinister grin as a snake she had summoned previously closed in on her opponent's leg. Without warning, the snake struck, sinking its fangs deep into the shinobi's flesh, injecting a massive amount of venom as it did so. Yelling out in pain, the man kicked the snake away before turning back to the woman before him. In a last-ditch effort in killing not only the snake whore, but the demon brat as well, he tossed a final kunai with an explosive tag attached to it. Seeing this, the purple-haired woman cursed and turned and lunged towards the blonde-haired boy, covering him as the explosion went off, sending massive amounts of shrapnel and other debris all over the alleyway. A fair amount hit the girl along her back, ripping her shirt and skin as blood began to pool around her. Two pariahs didn't have much time to consider their position as the wall fell over, burying the two in a pile of dust and debris. Luck as on their side as it had left a big enough pocket for them to not be crushed. However, that didn't raise Naruto's hopes any. The girl who had risked her own safety was in serious condition, and he knew that by the time anyone took the time to investigate, she would be long dead, and no doubt he would be blamed for it. Ari-chan, is there anything I can do? The blonde mentally asked, as he could feel the girl's body growing cold from the blood loss she was suffering from her wounds. There's one thing, but I don't know how the girl will react when she wakes up. The Kyuubi girl responded, though already not liking how things were turning out. What do I need to do, Ari-chan? You need to mark her as your mate, was the Kyuubi girl's simple reply. A simple reply that seemed to hit the blonde like a ton of bricks, no pun intended due to the situation they were in currently. Wait, what? It's the only way. You have to inject your Hanyu chakra into her so that she can heal. Ari quickly explained, knowing that they didn't have much time and if her container wanted to save this girl's life, this was the only way to succeed. You need to do it now. Just bite her on her shoulder and inject your chakra into her. Not arguing, Naruto gently turned the unconscious girl around so that she was facing him. He couldn't help but note that she was cute. With some encouragement from Ari, he leaned down and bit into the girl's left shoulder and began to pump his chakra into her. Slowly, he could feel warmth coming back to her skin as his chakra began to heal her wounds she had sustained from the explosion. Suddenly, off to the left side of his face, an audible pop sound was heard as smoke rose up from the base of her neck. She must have had another mark, not a mate mark but a servant mark. It felt tainted, Ari concluded. At any rate, your mark overpowered it and destroyed whatever was in it. I just hope that mark wasn't special to her. After a handful of seconds had passed, Naruto released his jaws from the girl's shoulder and saw as a black sun-like design appeared on her shoulder with a black fox-looking head with red eyes in the center of it. The sun's flames took the form of tails. 9 of them, sprouting out from behind the fox head. So this is what my mark looks like? He questioned mentally, liking the design of it. Even Ari was in awe of how it looked, secretly hoping she would get one too. A blush appearing across her face at the thought. The blond boy and his tenant were taking out of their thoughts as the girl before them began to groan, signaling that she was waking up. Slowly stirring, she sat up and groggily rubbed her neck where her former curse mark used to be. Are you okay? Naruto asked, even though she was. Physically at least. His chakra saw to that. Mentally and emotionally though, that was a different question. The hell happened? The girl asked, still a little disoriented from the events. You saved me from the mob that was trying to kill me. The blonde answered, catching the attention of the girl finally. Why did you risk yourself to save me? Because you needed help, she simply answered with a shrug. In truth, she didn't know why she got involved. All she knew was that she just hated the idea of a mob of cowards would gang up on a kid and even threaten to kill him. Another thing that was making its rounds within her mind was how she was feeling. She remembered the kunai being thrown, the explosive tag going off, her jumping to cover the boy, and then, blackness. Now, however, she felt like she was more in tune with her surroundings. Not to mention, despite the blast, she felt no pain anywhere on her body. What happened to me? She asked, looking in the direction the boy's voice came from. Only able to make out his silhouette as various clouds covered the moon that filtered into the cracks of the debris pile. You were badly hurt. Naruto sighed, preparing himself to be lashed out on. In order to save you, I had to do something, and I hope you won't be too upset. Being greeted with only silence, the boy continued. Your injuries were life-threatening. He began. In order to save your life, I had to mark you. Mark me. Her tone was clearly displeased. Yes. Naruto sighed as he prepared for the worst. Truth is, the villagers are right. I am a demon, or at least a half-demon thanks to their attack on me 2 years ago. So in order to save your life, I had to mark you as a mate. A potential mate. Ari chimed in as she began to remember smaller details about the marking ritual. In order for you two to become mates, she must accept and mark you back. Sorry, potential mate. This stuff is still pretty new to me. He nervously chuckled. Great. The girl sighed. Another mark. I may as well just start collecting them since I seem to attract them. You only have one. Naruto commented. What do you mean only one? I got marked by that snake bastard 6 years ago. She exclaimed. My mark overpowered his and destroyed it. The Hanyu explained as the moonlight lit up the inside, fully exposing both of their faces to each other for the first time. For her part, she was taken back by how handsome the boy was, despite being a good 6 years younger than her. His blue eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, giving off a sense of intimidation to an enemy, and comfort to an ally. Even more so, she was shocked that she had been freed from the snake bastard by this boy. Reaching up, she trailed her fingers across where it once was only to find nothing. No lumps or anything to show it was there. She did though, feel the slight rise in her skin where her new mark was. Though she couldn't see it, she traced around its design, making a mental note to take a look at it in a mirror as soon as she could. Don't worry, it should disappear in a week or so. Naruto explained. The only way it would stay is if you were to mark me to accept it and thus, agreeing to be my mate for life. And just how would I mark you? She asked with a slight grin as the clouds covered the moon once more, delving the two into darkness once more. Same way I marked you. He shrugged, not knowing just how close to danger he was as he continued to recite what Ari was telling him. You would have to bite my shoulder and inject your chakra into me so that they mix and form a bond. However, doing this will also change you into a Hanyu as well. Without warning, the girl moved forward and grabbed the young boy, sinking her teeth into his left shoulder as well, drawing some blood to the poor boy's dismay as he felt her chakra start to enter his body. Out of instinct, he clamped down on her shoulder as well. Almost as if sealing the ritual and mating the two for life. Once she was down, the girl sat back and wiped the blood from her mouth, giving it a timid lick as she noted its flavor. So what's your name? The girl asked in an embarrassed tone. Shouldn't we have established that before we mated for life? Naruto quirked a brow, though he couldn't help but chuckle. Anyways, I am Naruto, Naruto Uzumaki, resident demon brat. The and no longer single Anko Mitarashi. The girl now identified as Anko introduced herself, earning another chuckle from the boy in front of her. Nice to meet you. He smiled. Additional author's notes. And that is chapter 2. Hope everyone enjoyed it. So for some references, the General Studies School is behind the Uchiha compound and across the Naka River. At least from the map I am using as reference for how the village is laid out. Also, I decided to put the Shushuya pub just at the outskirts of the red light district, which is close to where Naruto's apartment is, hence why he had to pass by the pub. Also, I needed a reason for our favorite snake mistress to enter the fray and become Naruto's first mate. I know a few are asking why Naruto didn't just disappear into the shadows when Anko showed up. The answer: same reason he told to Ayame. He doesn't want anyone to get hurt for him if he can help it. Also the fact he wasn't expecting a ninja to be in the crowd this time around, nor was he expecting another ninja in the form of Anko to actually come to his defense as very few have in the past. Also implied is that our little Ari-chan is crushing hard on Naruto. And for those who may be confused, her physical appearance in her human form is that of a girl around Naruto's age, so he wouldn't feel too uncomfortable around her. And speaking of ages, as stated, a few of the girls' ages will be played with from canon, so that all potential harem members will be within 10 years of Naruto's age. So there will not be any severe age gap between them. We also saw Kushina make an appearance, which was kind of bittersweet for me, and I hoped I was able to capture at least some form of emotion as their time together was drawing to an end. Question is, should she come back to life at a later date? Feel free to answer via private message or leave it in the reviews. Anyways, I hope everyone enjoyed this update, and feel free to let me know what you think, who else should be added to the harem, and how you think they should meet. The young Hanyu sighed as he walked into the classroom. The entire morning, his tenant was ranting up a storm over the outfit he had decided to wear during his academy days. A bright orange and blue jumpsuit that all but screamed, "Kill me." To everyone. Sure, the female kitsune understood her container's reasoning, but she still didn't like it. And she made it known, vehemently. Naruto only chuckled at the Kyuubi girl's antics. His head to the side, he let out a second soft sigh and quickly moved to his seat towards the back of the classroom, just in time to avoid being trampled by two girls. Sasuke-kun. The pair of girls exclaimed as they pushed through the door. One with pink hair and one with blonde. Upon realizing that they both called for the same boy, they shot each other a hateful glare. Naruto only frowned in response of the scene in front of the classroom. These two had been like this the entire month and a half since the academy started. Always vying for position to earn the last Uchiha's attention and affection. Despite it being obvious that the emo had no interest whatsoever in the opposite gender. Leading to a few rumors that the raven-haired boy played for the other team. His eyes wandered to the pink-haired girl. Sakura Haruno. A girl from a civilian family, though her mother had a spot on the civilian council and was one of his primary antagonizers to constantly try and call for his banishment or execution. Though each attempt always got overruled by the old man. Despite only having her father to help teach her, since he was a former shinobi though retiring at the rank of genin, Sakura had initially shown promise of being a capable kunoichi. However, that opinion quickly began to deteriorate ever since she became a fangirl of the last Uchiha. Allowing his eyes to travel over to the next girl. Ino Yamanaka, hailing from a clan of mind walkers. Naruto had met her father on occasion when he would meet up with Anko after one of her torture sessions. Inoichi was head of the interrogation division, whilst Anko would torture other criminals and captives for information. Like Sakura, Ino had the markings of a great kunoichi, but also like her pink-haired rival, she squandered it all for the attention of the brooding emo. Naruto then turned his attention to the source of the girl's obsession. Sasuke Uchiha, only survivor of the Uchiha massacre. As a result, the boy was pampered beyond belief by the civilians and civilian council alike. As such, the raven-haired boy's ego and arrogance had inflated to an insane degree. Constantly thinking he was better than anyone and that everyone was entitled to give him what he wanted in order for him to kill his brother and restore his clan. Letting out a soft sigh, the Hanyu turned his attention to his next classmate. Kiba Inuzuka of the Inuzuka clan. On his head, sat the boy's faithful Ninken, a white dog named Akamaru. For the most part, Naruto had no issues with the boy's clan, but Kiba himself was a different story altogether. He was brash, arrogant almost to the Uchiha's level, constantly bragging about being an alpha and that everyone should respect him and all girls should want to be with him. This has caused lots of friction between the Inuzuka boy and his mother and sister. Naruto recalled one particular moment when the young Inuzuka had even attempted to get with his Anko-chan. Before his mate literally threatened to castrate the young boy if he even glanced in her direction, giving the dog boy a cut on the cheek to emphasize her point. Since then, Kiba had avoided the snake mistress at all costs. Unfortunately, it didn't teach him anything, as the boy continued to harass various girls in the class. Shaking his head at the memory, the young blonde then turned his attention to another classmate. Shino Aburame, a bug user from the Aburame clan. Like the Inuzuka clan, they were renowned trackers, using their bugs to detect chakra signatures and even neutralize targets by depriving them of their chakra. Unlike his Inuzuka counterpart, Shino was quiet and collected, rarely speaking out unless spoken to, rarely showing any emotion at all really. Naruto deduced that it had something to do with the boy's connection to his Kikaichu that forced him to remain stoic. Behind the Aburame sat the Hyuga heiress, Hinata, oldest daughter to the current clan head. Naruto noted that she was shy and timid, making the Hanyu wonder why she had chosen to become a kunoichi to begin with, as these were two traits that didn't mix well with the profession. Though he surmised there was no doubt pressure from the girl's father and clan elders, from the rumors he had heard about the Hyuga clan. On top of her timidness, he could see the girl already lacked self-confidence with the way she dressed. Covering every part of her body with heavy clothing, leaving only her head and hands exposed. Though this seemed to work in her favor, as his modest outfit had kept her off the radar of the Inuzuka boy. To be honest, Naruto wasn't sure how the timid girl would react if the boy turned his attention towards her. Considering her lack of confidence in herself, the Hyuga heiress wouldn't be able to reject the Inuzuka boy and be trapped in a relationship where she would only be viewed as a trophy rather than a real mate, despite the boy's constant use of the word. Frowning at the last thought, he turned his eyes towards the next student. Choji Akamichi of the Akamichi clan, who also owns and operates the village's unique barbecue restaurant that he had visited from time to time, as the Akamichis were one of the few that didn't ostracize him, and it helped balance his diet with various meats his body needed to continue to grow. As for Choji, Naruto didn't have any issues with the rotund boy. Though he did note that the Akamichi was sensitive about his weight, prompting him to retaliate against anyone who poked fun at it. However, all anyone had to do is just research the basic information of the Akamichi clan, and they would know how foolish it would be to poke fun at them. In a word, the clan was made of powerhouses. Each Akamichi member able to turn their calories into chakra, giving them a vast supply. Not only that, their own clan jutsus were something to behold and respect, as it allowed them to enlarge themselves with the strength to match. Choji would no doubt become very strong once the boy hit his prime. Then there was the last notable classmate, sitting just a few desks away from Naruto in the same row. Shikamaru Nara, fast asleep on his desk. The boy's clan techniques were similar to the ones that Jashin had given him, though to a much lesser degree. Manipulation over shadows to entrap their opponents if the Nara's shadow made contact with their enemies. The Hanyu made a silent vow not to encroach on the clan's own technique, despite it being well within his ability to do so. If Naruto had to describe the Nara boy in any capacity, it could easily be summed up by one word. Lazy. Everything to Shikamaru was troublesome. It seemed that the only Naras that were motivated to do anything were the female members of the clan. Which, according to Shikamaru, was troublesome. The rest of the classroom was comprised of various civilian kids that wanted to be a shinobi. Naruto wondered if they were fully aware of the life they would lead if they made it through the academy. Though he knew a majority of the female populate of the class wouldn't make it past the exams in their 4th year. Like Sakura and Ino, most of them were ignorant fangirls, only pinning for the attention of the last Uchiha. Shrugging it off, Naruto pulled out a scroll from his orange jumpsuit and discreetly released it, allowing a second-level Fuinjutsu book that he had been reading. Quickly applying a genjutsu over it to make it appear less suspicious. Already mastering the 1st level, much thanks to his shadow clone technique that Jashin-chan had taught him shortly after he marked Anko. Of course, this led to a lot of teasing from the goddess herself of how her champion was growing up so fast. After a few minutes, both of the instructors entered the classroom, prompting Naruto to seal the book up once more and stow it away in his jumpsuit to read later. One with dark brown hair, tied in a high ponytail, a scar across his face just under his eyes. Closing his eyes, the Hanyu reached out with his sensory abilities that Ari had been instructing him on, to gauge a person's intentions. For the most part, Naruto couldn't feel any hatred coming from the scared instructor. The man was full of pain and sorry over the loss of his parents during the Kyuubi attack 10 years ago. Though Naruto could feel that the man didn't blame him for their deaths and actually separated Naruto from the fox. This only caused the blonde to frown a little, since the scared instructor was placing all his hate on Ari. Though both Naruto and Ari took solace in that the instructor didn't know the full story of what happened. Perhaps later, when the time was right, Naruto could explain to him who was really to blame for the attack. Feeling a pair of eyes on him, Naruto directed his attention to the silver-haired man next to the other instructor. The Hanyu didn't need his sensory abilities to know this man was going to be trouble, just from the look he was receiving. As an instructor, Naruto had no doubt that the silver-haired man would do everything in his power to sabotage him. The blonde only inwardly smirked, as Anko had already prepared him for such an event. Knowing full well how the village viewed the boy. For the next 4 years, the two of us will be guiding you all on your journey to become shinobi of Konoha. The scared instructor stated, as his eyes wandered over the class, making sure he had everyone's attention. I am Iruka Yumino, and this is Mizuki. I know for the past month you had Mio-sensei as your instructor. Iruka continued. Unfortunately, she will be unable to continue her instructor duties due to personal issues. While there was confusion among the classroom, Naruto knew exactly why the woman was no longer teaching the class. During the weekend, she had attempted to kill Naruto to, in her own words, cleanse the village of the demon. Unfortunately for the woman, Naruto was currently on a date with Anko, and the snake mistress didn't take kindly to the attempted assassination. Currently, Mio was in the T&I building, probably being tortured by Anko-chan. At the thought, Naruto felt a wave of pity wash over him for the former instructor. Anko was very passionate about her job and enjoyed causing as much pain as possible to her subjects. Doubly so for those that she had a personal interest in. And the snake mistress was personally invested in Mio. Uzumaki, Naruto, Iruka called out, snapping the blonde out of his thoughts. Here, he simply replied. Alright, today we are going to start off with. Iruka began to drone. Almost immediately the class groaned as the currently lesson wasn't anything to be excited about. No tales of powerful jutsus, no exploits of brave shinobi taking on entire armies. No, the current topic was politics within the village. Rolling his eyes, Naruto took out his book once more and began reading. Thanks to Jashin-chan, he was already well versed in all of the major villages' inner workings as well as their laws. As the lecture drawled on, with almost half the class fast asleep, Naruto, for the most part, kept to his book when suddenly he was hit with memories of one of his shadow clones he left training in the Forest of Death. Immediately blood began to trickle from his nose and a heavy blush appeared on his face. The young Hanyu face vaulted into his desk, gaining the attention of the classroom. "Are you okay, Naruto?" Mizuki asked, with fake concern. "Just fine," the blonde retorted, not lifting his face from the desk. Letting the memories of the clone that had just dispersed settle. It seems his dear Anko-chan had decided to visit his clones and given him a special message in the form of groping the shadow clone's crotch while smothering its head into her chest. "Then you wouldn't mind telling the class what Tobirama Senju was best known for?" Iruka chimed in. Tobirama Senju, otherwise known as the Nadaime Hokage, is best known for achieving political stability and implementing institutions that help the village run more efficiently. Naruto explained as he lifted his head off the desk, once he was sure there was no evidence of what had just happened. As such, he ensured Konoha's continuity and prosperity. Very good, Naruto," Iruka commented, completely dumbfounded of such a full answer coming from the boy who already had a reputation of being the dead last in the classroom. "You seem to know your Hokages." "Of course I know my Hokages," Naruto exclaimed, jumping up on his desk. "Because I am going to be the greatest Hokage of them all." "Shut up, Naruto baka," Sakura shouted, earning a round of laughter from the classroom. Inwardly groaning at his foolish display, Naruto sat back down as the class resumed. Though a twinkle of mischief could be seen in his eye, no one noticed that Naruto didn't have a shadow anymore. "Two can play that game, Anko-chan." Naruto grinned to himself. He had used his proclamation of being Hokage to distract the class from him silently using his Dakukurin, or dark clone technique, to return the favor to his mate. It was similar to his shadow clones, but with the exception that it was equally as strong as him. Downside was he could only create one at a time. Still, it would get this particular job done. Hours later, after what seemed like an eternity, the final bell finally rang, signaling the end of the school day. Naruto waited for most of the class to clear out before making his way towards the door. Usually he would step into the shadows and disappear, but today, something was telling him to take the scenic route back home. Please stop," a timid voice begged from around the corner, catching the young Hanyu's attention. "Why?" another voice replied. "Are you going to cry? I say we rip out her weird eyes so we don't have to look at them anymore." Yet another voice commented with a sick laugh. Rounding the corner, Naruto could see three boys around his age trapping the young Hyuga heiress in a corner. The blonde scowled at this and wondered where the girl's guardian was. Moving forward, the blonde Hanyu griped one of the assailant's arm, just as the boy brought back his fist to strike at the girl. "You know, one thing I can't stand is cowardly bullies," Naruto remarked, his voice quiet but firm. "The hell do you want, demon?" the ring leader asked, yanking his arm out of the blonde's grip. Naruto only smirked and said nothing as he waited for the bullies to make the first move. Which happened almost immediately as the one on the left took a wild swing. The blonde quickly dropped into his hubby's stance and deflected the strike towards one of the other kids. With a series of fluid motions, Naruto quickly dispatched the three boys. "Typical of your kind. You're all tough shit when you can gang up on someone who can't fight back. But as soon as you go up against someone who can, you see just how pathetic you really are." Naruto scoffed at the downed ring leader of the group. "Now, if I ever see any of you approach this girl again, I will personally see to it that you will be eating through a straw. Do I make myself clear?" With a quick nod from all three of the boys, they quickly scurried away before they incur any more wrath from the blonde-haired boy. "Are you alright?" Naruto asked, as he turned his attention to the crying Hyuga girl. Thank you for saving me, the girl meekly replied. Naruto Uzumaki. The boy introduced himself. Thank you Uzumaki-san, I'm Hinata Hyuga. The Hyuga heiress formally introduced herself. Why didn't you fight back? Naruto asked. The Hyuga clan had a reputation of being taijutsu's masters. I don't like to fight or cause pain to others. She replied, looking down at the ground. Hyuga-san, it's perfectly okay to fight to defend yourself and those you love. The blonde replied. What is your dream? What do you want to achieve in life? I want to unite my clan under one banner. The girl meekly responded. And do you think it will be easy? She shook her head in response. Exactly, there will always be some form of conflict you must face. He continued. Hold on to your dream, and fight to see it become a reality. The two were then interrupted as a frantic branch member of the Hyuga clan came running forward in a rush. Get away from Hinata-sama, you filthy demon brat. The man lashed out, attempting to strike at Naruto, whom merely sidestepped the attack, easily avoiding it. You're welcome for doing your job. The blonde remarked before turning on his heel and leaving the two Hyugas. See you tomorrow in class, Hinata-san. You need not concern yourself with the likes of that thing, Hinata-sama. The branch member snidely commented, clearly not liking the boy. Be that as it may. Hinata spoke with an unusual firmness in her voice. He did do your job for you, and your failure will be reported to my father. The branch member gulped in fear, but bowed his head, accepting his fate, before leading the heiress back home. Naruto. After his encounter with the Hyuga heiress, the blonde Hanyu quickly made his way across the village to the Forest of Death, where no doubt a very frustrated Anko was waiting for him to arrive. He smirked from the earlier memory he got from his Dakukurin. In true definition of turnabout as fair play, the dark clone had snuck up behind Anko and used one hand to grab her by the crotch, while another groped her before quickly dispelling. To be honest, Naruto was the only person in the elemental nations that could get away with it, though there would be repercussions. After a few more minutes of traveling, Naruto entered the forest entrance and began bounding through the trees with the practice of a seasoned shinobi. It didn't take him long to arrive in a clearing where a small army of his shadow clones were training. Off to the side was a very frustrated snake mistress. You got a lot of nerve, Yaki. Anko shouted as she spotted the blonde. Though she failed to hide the grin on her face as she approached him. Turnabout is fair play. Naruto shrugged. You assaulted my clone while I was in class, you know. You act like you didn't enjoy it. She smirked as she hopped down right in front of him, wrapping her arms around his neck. Same could be said for you, hubby Haim. He grinned, wrapping his arms around her waist. Without waiting another second, both closed the distance and let the lips collide into a feverish kiss, built up from pent-up frustrations all day. Mostly on Anko's part. It took all of the snake mistress's mental fortitude to remind herself that Naruto was still only 10 years old, despite his body looking at least 2 years older than he actually was. After a few moments, the two broke the kiss, with Anko having a glazed look in her eye due to the feeling of euphoria of being in proximity to her mate. Naruto mirrored her feelings. One of the benefits of the mate's mark they both had was that they could feel each other's emotions and it amplified positive feelings for one another. However, it also increased their own desire for one another. The snake mistress was more than willing to satisfy that desire, but Naruto was firm that they at least wait until he graduated the academy, which she reluctantly agreed to. I see my two favorite Hanyus are behaving themselves. A distorted voice called as a blood-red sphere floated down before bursting, exposing the beautiful goddess of blood and carnage. As well as two frustrated Hanyus Kan, Jashin-chan. Naruto smiled as he reluctantly released Anko. The snake mistress herself had met the goddess just shortly after her encounter with Naruto that fateful night. To say she was shocked would have been an understatement. The usual boisterous Kunoichi was completely speechless that her mate was the champion of the goddess of blood and carnage. Though after a short talk with the goddess, Anko converted into being a true Jashinist. To what do we owe the honor, Jashin-sama? Anko asked respectfully. I came to witness Naruto-kun's progress. The silver-haired woman smiled as she ignited a wispy-looking black scythe in her hand, giving the appearance it was made from darkness itself. Making sure her champion got the message. Smirking, Naruto stepped away from Anko as he activated his own Dakiburdo, having it take the form of his preferred weapon. A double-bladed scythe, similar to how Jashin's looked with the same wispy appearance, wafting off the dark energy weapon. Dispel your clones, and we shall begin. Jashin instructed as she erected a massive barrier around the training ground, ensuring that no one within the village would detect the massive amount of energy that was about to erupt between the two. Doing as he was instructed, Naruto began to dispel all of his shadow clones in small clusters as the memories flooded his mind. Anko took this as a signal to get back a safe distance, retreating to the far end of the training ground, perched on one of the higher tree branches, giving the snake mistress a good view over the entire field. An eager grin on her face. After all, it wasn't every day you got to see a spar with an actual goddess. Silence hung in the air as the two stared each other down. Without warning, Naruto charged forward before abruptly disappearing into the shadows, only to come up behind the goddess and take a swing at her, only for her to twist and block the attack with ease. Smirking, the goddess retaliated, and unleashed a fury of blows from multiple angles, all of which the young blonde flawlessly deflected before renewing his attack on the silver-haired woman. Swinging down hard above her, Jashin brought up her scythe and blocked it only to see Naruto dissipate into thin air. Reacting on instinct, the goddess jumped up into the air, just as the blonde came up from underneath her. Very clever, my champion. Jashin praised the blonde for his ingenuity to use the goddess' own shadow as a means to teleport under her. Using my own shadow to your advantage. Thank you, Jashin-chan. The blonde grinned at the compliment his goddess had given him. Though he didn't dwell on it as he summoned his Dakukurin, dark clone, from his shadow and began a 2-on-1 assault on the goddess. The goddess only smirked as she twirled her scythe and deflected all of the blows, before hooking the dark clone's scythe with her own and forcing it forward only to be decapitated instantly. Naruto flinched at the memory he received, but didn't let it slow him down as he ducked under another wide swing from the goddess, narrowly avoiding her blade. Seeing an opening, Naruto pivoted and hooked the end of his scythe in between the goddess' legs and yanked it as hard as he could, causing the silver-haired woman to lose her balance for a split second before she corrected herself and followed the motion. Her body was going into a perfect backflip, righting herself just in time to block another strike from the blonde. The two continued to trade blows for another 2 hours before the sparring session began to wind down. Despite his abundant stamina and Hanyu-reinforced body, the young blonde was gasping for air as he fell to one knee, though still determined not to give up. If it wasn't for his accelerated healing, he would have also had numerous cuts all over his body, though only his torn cloths showed any signs that he had been hit. You lasted 2 hours against me. Jashin smiled, clearly happy with how well the young blonde did. It seems you have mostly mastered your scythe. The only thing you lack is true in-field experience. Thank you, Ya-chan. Naruto panted, though he did feel a sense of pride to have lasted as long as he did against an actual goddess. Even though she was holding back considerably and didn't use anything other than her own weapon to combat him. While Naruto had pulled out all stops and used everything at his disposal. That being said, while you are proficient with your scythe, I strongly recommend learning to wield a secondary weapon to fall back on. The goddess advised. You may find yourself in areas where you will be unable to use your scythe to its fullest. Any weapon you recommend? Seek out Yugao Azuki. The silver-haired goddess stated. She is your village's most skilled kenjutsu users. Her skills easily rival that of 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. I will seek her out immediately then. Naruto bowed his head in respect to the goddess. even though she had told him time and again that he didn't need to. Until we meet again, my champion. The goddess bid her farewell to the young Hanyu before she disappeared, allowing the barrier she had erected fall. Shortly afterward, Anko dropped down from the tree she had perched herself on while she witnessed the battle. The snake mistress had seen the two spar before, but each time had left her in awe and a bit envious. Silently, she wondered just how well she would fare against the goddess. Hey Anko-chan, do you know someone named Yugao Azuki? Naruto asked, as she came up behind him. Why? Looking to get another girl already? She grinned, teasing the poor boy. Not my intention, but you know I am a sucker for strong and girls. He smirked. But Jashin-chan suggested I seek her out and ask her to train me in Kenjutsu. Yeah, I know her. She is Anbu Neko. I think you've seen her a few times while she was on duty. Anko commented. If I remember correctly, she has today off. You may be able to find her at the Dango shop. Thanks hubby Haim. Naruto smiled as he brought his snake mistress in for another kiss. I better go try and find her now. You do that, I need to go take a really cold shower. The snake mistress pouted. That spar got me all hot and bothered. I will graduate before you know it. He reassured her as he kissed her one more time before letting them both sink into the shadows. A few minutes later, after dropping Anko off at her apartment so that she could release some of her frustration, Naruto quickly made his way towards the main street of the village. Ignoring the various sneers and glares he received, the blonde Hanyu navigated his way through the busy street until he drew near to the Dango shop Anko and told him about. While I appreciate the gesture, I am simply not interested in you in a romantic way, Hayate-san. A purple-haired woman around the age of 18 commented as Naruto entered the shop. I really wish you would reconsider Yugao-chan. The man replied, coughing a little. I think we would be great together and I would treat you like a goddess. Well, looks like I found her. Naruto thought to himself. Now how to approach her without being rude. I don't doubt that. The woman sighed, clearly showing signs of being annoyed. But as I have told you, I am already in an arranged marriage. Well, at least Anko-chan doesn't have to worry about me bringing her home now. Naruto snickered to himself quietly. Come on, your would-be fiancé doesn't need to know you had a little fun before you got hitched. Hayate replied with a grin, before he started coughing again. This caused both Naruto and Yugao to narrow their eyes simultaneously. Naruto had always looked down on those who were unfaithful in any capacity. Even more so when those individuals were involved in a relationship. Not having anyone growing up, Naruto took loyalty, honesty, and integrity very seriously. Yugao on the other hand was absolutely disgusted with what her fellow shinobi was suggesting. It gave her the impression that he only wanted her as a conquest to brag about later. Throwing his earlier words out the window about treating her as a goddess. Deciding it was time to step in, Naruto approached the purple-haired beauty. Excuse me, are you Yugao? Naruto asked, catching the attention of both the young woman and Hayate. Yugao looked over the young blonde for a moment, narrowing her eyes slightly, though not in a disdainful way. In reality, she felt something she recognized with the boy though couldn't put her finger on what it was. Yes, I am Yugao. She replied. I was told by someone I trust to ask you about training in Kenjutsu. The blonde explained. So you want to be a swordsman, huh? She smiled. I may be able to give you a few tips, but first I have an idea. Hayate interrupted, earning a glare from Naruto and a scowl from Yugao, neither that he noticed. How about both of us give you some pointers? I am a Kenjutsu user as well. You get your training, and maybe Yugao-chan and I can get to know each other better. Hayate-san, I have been patient enough with your pursuit of me. Yugao gritted out. The answer is no, and I will not seek to have fun before I meet my potential fiancé. If you continue to insist, I will make a formal complaint to the Hokage about your harassment. Besides, Naruto grinned, not wanting to miss out on getting his shots in since the man had already rubbed him the wrong way. I was instructed to seek out only Yugao as her skills rival that of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. I highly doubt your skills would even compete with hers. At that, Hayate scowled and left the dango shop in a huff. Humiliated by both his object of desire and the gaki that had interrupted his time with her. The snickering from Yugao infuriated him even further as he quickened his pace. Thank you for that, Naruto Uzumaki. The blonde introduced himself. You said your mentor told you to seek me out. Anyone I should know. She quirked an eyebrow as she leaned down just a little so that she was face to face with him. Tell her who I am. Jashin's voice echoed in his mind. Jashin-chan. As soon as he said the goddess's name, Yugao's eyes opened wide in shock. Glancing around to see if anyone was watching them, she quickly grabbed the blonde and used her shunshin body flicker technique to transport them both to a secure location. Once she was positive that no one was around, she turned and eyed the blonde. Did you say Jashin-sama sent you to me? She asked tentatively. Wait, Jashin-sama? Naruto asked, a little confused. You mean you're... Nodding, Yugao reached under her vest and pulled out a silver necklace with a upside-down triangle inside a circle. The goddess of blood and carnage's symbol, signifying the Anbu's faith to her goddess. In the back of his mind, he could hear 2 distinct chuckles, causing the blonde to roll his eyes at the 2. Would have been nice if she told me you were one of her followers. Naruto frowned. But yes, Jashin-chan instructed me to find you and ask for training in Kenjutsu, since I am already proficient with my scythe and I need a backup weapon to be more versatile. If Jashin-sama has sent you to me, it will be my honor to train you in the art of swords. Yugao smiled, proud that she was serving her goddess. I look forward to learning from you, Yugao-san. The blonde bowed to his new sensei. You wouldn't be Jashin-sama's champion, would you? The purple-haired woman voiced her question, a look of anticipation in her eyes. Yes, I am. Naruto answered truthfully, only to see the woman's face light up with a vibrant smile and a look of pure joy and happiness. Why? Because you're the one. She smiled as she stepped closer, bringing her face to his. You're my fiancé, as per Jashin-sama's instructions. Not that I want to go against Jashin-chan's wishes, but I have already marked Anko-chan as my mate, and I don't want to betray her. He frowned. Yugao on the other hand only giggled, catching the boy's attention. She found it sweet that he considered his current lover's feelings about it. It was endearing. I understand, and it is sweet of you to take her feelings into consideration. Yugao spoke, though she didn't sound upset like Naruto thought she would. Does she follow Jashin-sama? She recently converted about a year ago. The blonde answered. Then I will explain to her. The purple-haired woman responded with a mischievous grin. Of course, with it being Anko, she may see this as a chance for a threesome. Naruto could only face